Hello, I hope you had a great spring break. We are going to be kicking off the second half of our chapter 7 today. We are going to be learning about time. So time can be a little bit tricky. We know that we can read a digital clock, and that's what we read in our classroom. You know, on the phone, there's the digital clock that you all check to see when it's lunchtime. And time is really important. It's important to know what time we have to get up for school, what time we have to hand in our assignments, what time we have baseball practice, or what time we have cheer practice, what time the food store closes, what time we have a doctor's appointment. So time is super important, and this is one of the things that you're going to use for the rest of your life. So it's important to be able to read both a digital clock and what we call an analog clock. So today I'm going to help you do that. Bear with me through the video and let me know if I can help you in any other ways. Stay tuned and please watch the rest of the video.
Okay, so these are the two clocks that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be really focusing on the digital clock and the analog clock. So this is the digital clock down here, and I'm just going to go ahead and highlight that. And then this is the analog clock, and the analog clock is the one that we see. We have one in our classroom, and there are some throughout the school as well. The one that we see most is pretty much the digital clock, and we see this on our microwaves, we see this on our ovens, we see this on the little phone in our classroom. So these are the two different types of clocks, and we're going to talk about the different ways to read those two clocks. So first I wanted to introduce the minute hand and the hour hand. So the hour hand on the clock is actually the smaller hand. So the shortest hand is the hour clock. So this is the short hand, and this will tell us the hour. Let me do that in blue so that we can really see it. So the hour hand is the shorter hand on the clock. Now, when we write the hour in our digital clock, that is going to go on this side of the digital clock. The long hand on the clock tells us the minutes. So that is going to go on this side of the digital clock. So the short hand is always going to tell us the hour, and the long hand is always going to tell us the minutes on the clock. Now, before we jump into anything else, I just wanted to talk about a little bit about how to read this clock. So these numbers around the clock will tell us the hour. So we have when it would 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 12 o'clock. Those are all the hours in our day, right? But there's also little tick marks, and these tick marks go around the clock just like this. So actually, when we look at a clock and we jump from the 12 to the 1, the minute hand is going to go by 5-minute intervals, or 5 minutes. So we're going to just go ahead and quickly mark that just so we can see those 5 minutes that go around the clock. So, that was a 50. The 5 again. So these 5-minute intervals actually stretch throughout the entire clock, and as the long hand moves around the clock, which is the minute hand, we are going to be able to see those different minutes. So if the long hand was pointed towards this one, it wouldn't be 1 minute, it would be 5 minutes. If that long hand was pointed towards the 10, it would be 10 minutes. So that's just important to know a little bit before we get started. So what I wanted to show you guys was this other sheet of paper. And this piece of paper is in your books as well. But this is one way of showing this is how you show 4 o'clock. That short hand is pointing to the 4, and that long hand is pointing to the 12. Now, when we see a long hand pointing to the 12, that means 0 minutes. It's like restarting on the hour. So we're going to make sure that we remember that 12 means 0 minutes. So when we show that, in that minute spot, it's going to be 2 zeros. But then when we move over here, that long hand is pointing towards the 6. So in order to figure out how many minutes that is, we start at the 12 and we start counting by 5. So we could say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that's 30 minutes, my friends. When that long hand is pointing toward the 6, it isn't 6 minutes, it is 30 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and write that into the minute spot. But then when we look at the hour hand, which always is the short hand, we're going to look and see where it is. And this falls directly in between the 4 and the 5. Now let me show you why that happens. So I'm going to use my clock here. And if I were to put this at, bear with me for 1 second. If I were to put this at 4:30, if I were to put this at 4 o'clock, let's start there. So this is 4 o'clock on the clock, right? And now as that clock is moving, as that clock is moving, that shorthand, which is here, is not stopping. So it is continuing to move as it goes to 4:30. Now, because it's not 5 o'clock yet, it is actually going to sit in between that 4 and that 5. So that shorthand is going to sit in between the 4 and the 5 because it hasn't passed the 5 yet, is still 4:30. So that is just one way of looking at that. Let's do another one. So let's say it was, this thing is a little hard to move. Let's say it was 6 o'clock. Keep spinning it. All right, there we go. 6 o'clock. So we have the shorthand, my friends, pointing at the 6. So we're going to do this. This is the hour, and then this is the minutes. So that shorthand is, my friends, that shorthand is the hour hand, and that long hand is the minute hand. So when I see the shorthand, I'm going to say it's 6 o'clock. Let me write that on my digital clock over here. I see the shorthand on the 6, so I'm going to go ahead and write the 6 over here, and then I see that longhand or the minute hand on the 12, and we know that when it's on the 12, it is going to be 0 minutes. So in this case, it says 6 o'clock on this clock here. So now I want to show you what happens as that continues to move around the clock. So I'm going to move, geez Louise, I'm going to move this to 6:30. And you see as I'm moving this, that shorthand is also moving. So now we have 6:30. Now looking at this, and we see that shorthand, again, the shorthand is tells us the hour, and the longhand tells us the minutes. So here I see that shorthand is in between the 6 and the 7. And this is the way I remember it. If it hasn't passed the 7 yet, it still has to go to the 6. So it's going to go to that number that's right before the hour hand that it hasn't passed. That's a little bit confusing, I know, but just remember that if it's in between two numbers, it's going to go to the one that it is just passed, not the one it's going to pass. So we're in between there, 6, and then let's count those minutes. So again, we have 5 minutes, and then we have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and 30 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and write that again on my clock here. We had 6:30 for the time on this clock. Again, making sure that we look at that shorthand to tell the hour and the longhand to tell us the minutes, and we're counting by 5s as we do so. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now let's do another time. Let me show you, let's see. Okay, now I want your help to figure out what time this clock is reading. So what we're going to do, and what you're going to do when you do this on your own, is first you're going to look at the shorthand, which is the hour hand. So I'm looking at that shorthand, which is going to tell us the hour, and I'm going to see that it's pointing directly at the 9. Now I know that it is 9 something. We have to figure out the minutes though. So we're going to go ahead and look at that minutes, the longhand, and say that it's at the 12. Now remember, my friends, when it's pointing towards the 12, that means that it is 0 minutes, or it's just the new hour. So in this case, it would be 9 o'clock, and I'm going to write that again on my clock, digital clock right here, 9 o'clock. Now, what happens if I were to move those, and it would, now paying attention to that shorthand that is moving as I'm moving the long minute hand. Now we look at this time. Again, looking at our shorthand, which is the hour hand, and our long hand, which is the minute hand. we're going to look at that shorthand first, and it is pointing in between the 9 and the 10, but it hasn't passed the 10 yet, so we're going to stick to 9 o'clock, and then let's count and see where that minute hand is pointing. So we're going to go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. We have counted the time. We start at the 12 and we count by 5. So we say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. It is half past 9 o'clock. And the way we would write that on the clock is 9:30, just like so. So I'm going to try and find a video of a song or something that will help us remember the difference between the short and the long hand, and I'm going to post that along with this video. Today you are going to complete page 510 and 511, numbers, I think it's 1 through, let me check my book, 1 through 9. You're going to complete numbers 1 through 9 on page 510 and 511. Please comment below if you have any questions or any way that I can help you understand this. I hope you have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.